ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦਿਸ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ੋ। ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਸਾਥ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਮੰਡੇ ਟੂ ਫਰਾਈਡੇ ਸਵੇਰੇ 8 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 9 ਵਜੇ ਤੱਕ, ਮੰਡੇ ਟੂ ਥਰਸਡੇ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ 10 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 11 ਵਜੇ ਤੱਕ, ਅਤੇ ਸੈਟਰਡੇ ਨੂੰ 2 ਵਾਰੀ ਦੁਪਹਿਰ 2 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 3 ਵਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਅਤੇ ਰਾਤ 8 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 9 ਵਜੇ ਤੱਕ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਲਿੰਡਾ ਮਾਰਕ ਨਾਲ, ਇੱਕ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਕਸਪਰਟ ਹਨ। ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਉਣਗੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਗਲਤ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ, ਪਰ ਜੇਕਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਗਲਤ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਸਟੇਟਮੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਡਰਾਅ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੋਈ ਨਵੀਂ ਸਟੇਟਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਸੋ ਆਓ ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਕੁਝ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਲੈਣੇ ਹਾਂ ਲਿੰਡਾ ਮਾਰਕ ਤੋਂ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਭਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ। ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ।
Thank you.
So Linda, today we're going to talk about when an application is submitted, at that time kind of information which is provided by a client to the embassy over there. So what needs to be kept in mind, because many times we hear that wrong information was given and because of that was rejected. So in case at that time wrong information has been provided, so can that be retracted also and some new application should be given, or the application which has been earlier submitted that can be worked upon and something more information can be given?
When people have given, have lied on an application or have given incorrect information, there are things that can be done to resolve the problem. First of all, they can right within the same application. They don't necessarily have to refile. So with the same application, they can make additional submissions, correcting information or providing additional information. Sometimes, and I've dealt with cases where ultimately an application has been refused. So what we've done is we have actually applied for a new application, and we have addressed some of the issues that were raised in the previous application where there were misrepresentations or where people were not providing proper information.
Okay. So what, because of experience, if you can take us into this journey today, what are the major reasons for which people misrepresent and do the thing by misrepresenting, that is by telling lies or giving some false information, they can come into this country?
All right. The people do different things under different circumstances. Sometimes people will just say something that they think the immigration officer wants to hear. I had one South Asian client once who had entered into a type of, it was an arranged marriage, and when he was in the interview, the officer said to him, have you ever slept with your wife or had any kind of relations with your wife? And he said, he thought that would sound good, so he said yes. And as you know, in the South Asian community, in an arranged marriage, that isn't done.
Absolutely, after the marriage only, you can sleep.
So that's one example. I've had clients who have maybe had a problem in a country, maybe a criminal problem or something like that. And so they just won't put down that they lived in that particular country. And so they're basically they're lying about two things there. One is that they lived in a specific country. The other often that they don't have this background, this criminal background or whatever it is. I've had other clients who, and again, I had a South Asian client a number of years back, and he was here as a permanent resident already. He had put in his application for permanent residence. It had been, a lot of the processing had been done, but before it was fully processed, around the time of his interview, he and his wife, he'd been married and they had a child. And he was told, or he felt that if he didn't say anything about them, that his application would process faster. But what ended up happening is ultimately immigration found out about it after he was a permanent resident, and he received a removal order. He had to leave Canada and he lost his permanent resident status.
Just because of this information not being given to the government.
That's right. And what I find a lot of the times is that people are making misrepresentations and saying things when it's not necessary at all. I mean, there is no need for it because there's nothing about their case that is a problem.
Right.
And so that creates a lot of, it just creates a lot of problems for people that aren't necessary.
Right. Now, because you're mentioning about the South Asian clients, many times what happens is that the information which they're getting, probably they're not understanding, and just out of curiosity also, they just answer those questions on their own. Now, in case, if this has happened whereby a person, for example, a person who has not understood the question well, but just by reading it, he kind of gave that information. So in these kind of cases, what can be done? Can that statement be retracted and something, some more information can be given?
That's right. Well, what happens, I have clients come to me often sometimes, and they'll say, look, this is the information that went in. I didn't know what that question meant.
Right.
And so if they see me before the application is fully processed,
right,
then what we can do is prepare additional information, address the issue, and I find most of the time immigration will accept that.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing I find that immigration will often do is if they discover after an application has gone in that there may be, let's say, a criminal record or something like that,
right,
they do give people the opportunity
okay,
to make additional submissions before any application is ever refused.
okay.
So I find they're quite fair, at least in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that malified intention, what you're talking about, that is the prime concern when an application is processed and looked into by the immigration department, that a person who's giving the information is right to the best of the information which has to be given.
Exactly.
Okay, and as you said, they get a chance also. So for example, let's take some example whereby, as you said, of that gentleman who gave this information when he was asked whether you have slept with your wife or not, and he just said it. Maybe he might have understood that after marriage they are asking, for example. Okay.
It's possible,
so,
exactly.
So because it wasn't clear, or probably, as I said, like a communication problem might be there, or your understanding at that moment might be a little different. So in those kind of cases, like you said, if it has happened, so what should they do? Should they just come and meet some professional and give that information back, or on their own also they can do it?
I think it's a good idea to meet with a professional, and then the professional can make a presentation to immigration that will often help.
Right.
One of the things I recommend to clients when they go in for an interview, if they feel it hasn't gone well, let me know right away.
Right.
Because what we're then able to do is, what I usually do is I'll send a letter into to immigration indicating that we'd like to make further submissions.
Right.
We will then meet with the client and address the issues that they felt were problematic. And then we will send that to immigration. And we have and we can, on many occasions, solve a problem before we have a refusal.
Right.
If you end up with a refusal, if it's a sponsorship application, then that can be appealed
Right.
to the Immigration Appeal Division. And I find with a lot of cases we can be successful with those. One of the things I find about the Canadian embassy overseas, especially in India, is that they are looking for arranged marriages. If it's a love marriage, they question it,
Right.
and you end up with often more problems
Right.
than certainly more problems than a traditional arranged marriage. So
Right.
you've got to really be careful how you present those kinds of cases.
Wonderful. And towards the end, as you mentioned, that one thing is be open and clear as much as you can.
Absolutely.
What else should be kept in mind when you have submitted your application or while you are submitting it?
Okay. Another thing to keep in mind is that sometimes circumstances change. Let's say you even get a visa, you're
Right.
issued a visa, and let's say something happens after the visa is issued. There is a responsibility on the part of the applicant.
To inform the embassy.
Absolutely. And if you don't inform and you become a permanent resident
Right.
without informing, you could down the road lose your permanent residence.
Wow, later on if they find out, they can remove you from that list.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Pleasure having you.
Thank you.
ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਜਿਸ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ, ਲਿੰਡਾ ਮਾਰਕ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਮਿਸਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ, ਮਿਸਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਨਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਵੇ। ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਤਾਂ ਗਲਤ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਚਲੋ ਜੀ ਭਰ ਦਿਓ, ਕੀ ਫਰਕ ਪਏਗਾ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਭੁੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਮਬੈਸੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਫਿਸਰਸ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਉਸ ਖੇਤਰ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਇਲਾਕੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਗਲਤ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ। ਪਰ ਜੇਕਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗਲਤ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਬਮਿਟ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਈਵਨ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਸਹੀ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਪਰ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹੀ ਕਿ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਸੱਚ ਬੋਲੋ, ਝੂਠ ਬੋਲਣ ਦੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ। ਇਹ ਨਾ ਸਮਝੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਟ੍ਰਿਕ ਕਰ ਲੋਗੇ ਐਮਬੈਸੀ ਆਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲਸ ਨੂੰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ। ਕਿਤੇ ਇਹ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਇੱਕ ਗਲਤੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਹੀ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਜਾਏ।